I drive my car up to the lake as if there's someone to awake. I haven't been to bed for days, I live in a twilight haze. And I set my heart to the setting sun, and I hope that no one else has done it. And the drinks are never far, open up the bar. I miss you every single day. I wait until we'll start your way. I hate the way I stray.
Right, so you just have to sort of talk our words, get it all across to the viewers.
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram as well, so
Yeah.
if anyone's watching, they can just search me up.
Yeah. Hey, so Irene, welcome to our little podcast. And look, I did all of my research, all of my stalking, as I like to call it, on Instagram.
Yeah.
I sort of, went a little bit astray and kind of looked in a few other places, but generally I stuck to Instagram. Hopefully that's like a fair reflection of all of your artwork and stuff.
Yeah,
because you've just had this exhibition open on Tuesday.
Yep, that's right.
Tell us about that.
It's called A Universal Law of Gravitation.
Yep.
And it's the first show in my residency with photosynthesis.
Yes.
So the idea was to bring out all of my photography from the archives, because I've not focused on photography as my main medium in the past. I've been a bookmaker, I've illustrated, I've done little bits of painting, but it's mostly kind of kept photography in the background, and in this case I get to show all of my pictures as they are, and I've combined them into a book as well. The theme of the work is around Christchurch and the landmarks and spaces I've gravitated towards. So it's a little bit of pun on Newton's science, but loose, keeping it loose.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Oh, that's cool. So you've got one of the things that I noticed as I was scrolling was that it's really, like you say, it's quite broad. So just like there's photography, there's I wrote it down. There's just so much going on. Like you also are involved, kind of, I don't know how to say it, but like using trash that you find on the streets. Yeah. Incorporating that in there, and then there's obviously the drawing, there's the typography, the photography. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of layers.
Yes.
But it seems to kind of all be kind of, it's all from you, and it fits together
somehow.
Yeah.
Who knows how?
Yeah.
It's I find art making is for me a way of engaging life. So to limit it to one medium seems to defeat the point for me, and I like being able to incorporate stuff that I discover as I'm wandering around, or there's serendipitous moments, and I think bookmaking allows for the incorporation of a lot of that stuff, so I just keep it all. I don't narrow down very well at all.
Yeah. Full on. And so let's talk about so you were saying before that you studied at ARA as graphic design?
Yep. Fresh out of high school back in the day.
Nice one. What year was that?
2011.
Yep.
I was set to start right before the quakes.
Right.
Picked up my art pack from Gordon Harris.
Yeah.
Had an impromptu holiday while everything got delayed.
Oh, yeah.
But that was a really good experience. I went into graphic design because I've been interested in art and art writing for a long time, and it seemed like a good mesh of kind of logical, structured approach to art making in a way.
Yeah.
Practical.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it coming through in your work with that typology and the grids and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. So that didn't ruffle your feathers too much? Massive earthquake? Just studying?
Yeah. For me, it was all right.
You just
my parents' homes got damaged a little bit, but I think as a family we got through it pretty well. And then in terms of my way of coping with things, it's always been to study or to learn about the world. So putting my head down in a book is definitely a good coping mechanism. Yeah,
true that.
How was it for you guys?
I was I was at a different stage of life, kind of thing. Like, but we had someone else on here, Bianca Smeeks, who was like first day of university, right?
Right.
So that kind of happened for a lot of people, I guess. You know, there was a whole class of people coming in at that time, and yeah, I'm always kind of curious as to how that kind of affected them. But with us, I don't know. With me, not too much. I mean, yeah, we lost our house, we lost our jobs and things like that. But I don't know. There was also a sense of kind of everyone was in it together, right?
Yeah.
So there was that unity kind of through that suffering type of thing, which was kind of turned out to be quite a cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, there is a sense of adventure. And I really enjoyed all the aftershocks coming through. Found it fascinating. Like tying it down so you can tell like 5.2 from 4.8 or whatever.
I haven't got your microphone plugged in, Milton,
Well,
after all.
Yeah. I really looked at me weird.
Yeah, sorry, dude.
It might just be my face.
I get the gist, mate.
There we go. Say it again, Milton. Go. Fire away. Take two.
No, I'm not saying it now. Oh no, the earthquakes. Yeah, I found that quite adventurous. And kind of fascinating. I mean, you know, like I was just in a flat which got destroyed and so forth, but it's just a flat. Who cares?
Yeah. It's a lot of it. It's just take it as it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Which is people. That's what we do. Yep.
Totally.
But the camaraderie and that sense of people elevating into a new community consciousness, that was a really cool thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it really struck me how art played a role in there as well. All of the spaces that got activated, all of the works that people put up, it kind of helped create this identity or visual story to go along with what we were actually experiencing as well.
Totally. Like there was a need to express what had happened, perhaps, and yeah. So how did you say? Oh, yeah, you approach art with just a whole bunch of different things. You're not narrowing it down. Are you quite kind of disciplined? Like, what's your process? Kind of.
I would describe myself as aspiring towards discipline. I think routine is a place where I actually do thrive in my practice, and so over the past probably 4 years since I returned to postgrad study, I've reiterated the same kinds of shows, different books, but similar materials that I use, similar ways of constructing the book elements, and a process that really revolves around found materials or poor quality materials. And in terms of what that looks like during the week, most furious making comes right before exhibition. I typically have a visual or idea that takes maybe a month of solid work to get to fruition, and you only really see the final product when it's up in the space normally.
So it's quite conceptual for a wee while. Like you're just... Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the connecting force behind a lot of my work, is trying to think about the way that we perceive the world and how we put those experiences into media, you know, the expression that you were talking about, but what does putting it in a book versus in a painting, how does that change that communication for other people, and then the shared experience that they get from my work? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a transmission when you make a piece of art. Yeah.
Well, it's not. If it was just for you, you would just keep it at home and have like a museum of little galleries leading off the hallway.
Yeah.
What are some of the perceptual differences in those media, say paintings, and a book that people might perceive differently?
Well, one of it's kind of just material engagement. With a book, it's really intimate. It's close. You have this kind of ability to zoom in on something, but then you're also seeing relationships between images in a different way when you're flicking a page. Whereas when I take that and I put it on a wall and all of the pages are next to each other, all of a sudden the whole thing is one work. It's not just a series of photos.
Yeah.
It's a photo of composites, and the elements and the colours change the way that you see the individual pieces.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and a book, someone is like touching it and they're kind of in control of a certain amount of the speed at which they're going to look through it, all sorts.
Yeah, it's a more familiar experience as well, just sitting down with a book versus going into a gallery, so quite a different way of seeing artwork.
Yeah. Books are kind of not quite as common these days, though.
It's true. I think there's freedom in that now.
Yeah.
There's no...
There's more of a
hierarchy.
choice. Yeah. There never used to be kind of a choice, right? But these days, I think there's more of a choice.
There's something about a book, though. It's very good.
Yeah, I agree.
And perhaps can't be digitally replaced.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly redundant, a bit over the top with having to print things out. People are a bit anti that these days, but...
True. Yeah, everything can be looked as like waste in a way.
Yes, it can be.
So, you look at some of those tensions between the, digital and...
Archaic?
Analog?
Yeah,
Digital and
Analog.
analog,
Analog.
so
Yeah,
I
world.
think about it.
Yeah.
Or even digital and haptic. I think touch is a really important element to anything that's not online.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the main bit for me that gets lost when I take my photos and I put them on Instagram versus putting them in a book. You lose touch and tactile engagement.
Yeah, true. I really enjoyed looking at all of your different work, and it kind of did resonate with me. I don't know if I'm a great one for art, but
That's all right.
it did resonate with me, and some art kind of annoys me. Shouldn't say some artists.
Some.
It was a Freudian slip. No, some art.
I think most people
and I
relate
suppose
to both those statements.
yeah, hold the artist responsible. But no, yours resonated with me in a lot of ways, and there's even little videos and stuff on the screen and stuff. But I was just imagining, a photo of a photo of a photo of a photo, kind of like zooming out, kind of thing.
I do
because
that
it is
sometimes.
that context can be lost, online when you're just flipping scrolling or whatever.
Yeah, and I think process is a big part of my work as well. So I like revealing that through the way that I make things, not trying to disguise it behind a fancy finish or anything like that. Not conceiving the idea of a photo as, a perfect studio shot with lighting. It might actually just be an image of something I'm working on that goes in the final book itself. So there's this show of what I've been doing along the way as I connect with more serious images or, environments around Christchurch.
Yeah, full on. And what have you sort of discovered about Christchurch?
It's beautiful. I love it here. I think it's quite small. You definitely get a sense of that. I do a lot of walking around Christchurch, taking images of businesses and things like that, and it's a very short process to getting familiarity to what's around. Even, repeat visiting cafes and things like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's so much going on, and there's always street art that's changing and buildings that are changing, and it feels really dynamic to me. And as someone who's been born and raised here and gone through the teenage phase of hating the city that you were born in, it really feels like home now.
Yeah. Yeah, and the earthquake kind of plays into that as well, right? Because it's more changing perhaps than other places, do you reckon? Like more dynamic, more kind of like...
Definitely feels that way when you're here. I haven't lived in other cities, so it'd be hard to gauge, but it does feel very dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. Is there enough trash on the streets for you?
Yeah, probably enough, I think.
Yeah.
Pick it up if you're dropping it, but if you don't pick it up, I might rescue it and put it into a book too.
Totally. Yeah. So what is it about trash that you're attracted to? Or
I think it's just an artifact. It's something I'm interested in what we leave behind, the spaces that come after us and the things that we kind of create, and give as a legacy, and in some way that is trash, and we don't really think about it that way. It's kind of this forgotten element of our lives, but it can be really revealing about our habits, the way we purchase things, kind of where we're travelling to and from, and I find that fascinating.
Cool.
It's a record, and I'm sure archaeologists in the future will be digging up, you know, more important things, but we see from the past already that trash and the remnants of activities really do tell us a lot about what a society values, and in some ways it keeps it real local and real concrete when you go around Christchurch and you think about that and you see what's on the streets, and you know, it's not just trash but street art or things that people have lost, and yeah, there's lots of different bits and pieces. Just gives you an insight into people, I think.
Yeah, and it kind of tells you something about ourselves without actually kind of directly talking about ourselves. So like it's the void that's been left behind or something like that. It's kind of where we were. It's a crazy thing. You're quite a deep thinker. I guess all artists are.
Yeah, it can be. Everyone's got a different process. When I was about 6, I was obsessed with Egyptology, so I think that's had a big influence on me.
Right. Yeah.
We made this paper mache cat door stopper.
Yeah.
Greatest artistic moment of my life.
Oh, cool. So that just gave you an awesome sense of like, this is freaking cool.
I think from an early age, just being like, what even is culture? Why do we make things? It's quite bizarre how much we express of ourselves, and probably when I was 6 I wasn't thinking about it like that, but it has always fascinated me, I think, culture, especially being in New Zealand. Most of my family is from here, but my grandmother's Canadian, Ukrainian blood, Canadian birth, and my grandfather's Scottish origin, so just thinking a lot about where people came from and how people live so differently in different parts of the world as a young kid blew my mind. Yeah,
to a certain degree I have recollections of that as well. And I saw you've got a National Geographics. They played a big role?
Yeah, my grandfather had an amazing collection, just hundreds of them. And I remember that was a safe space for me, going over to their house and playing in their garden. They had this wheelchair that we used to roll around the streets on. That was good. And then in the afternoons or before dinner, just sitting down and reading.
Yeah, I've got a big collection of those as well. And it's in my son's room. Like I made a bookshelf for them. And they go back to like 1920s or something. Like 1924, I think is the earliest one. And it has like even like the advertising on the backs. You've got the early Coca-Cola kind of ads, and the ones where the doctors are promoting certain brands of cigarettes. All of that type of things in there. Yeah. There's like Mugabe, this kind of African dictator, but when he first came in, he was like a hero. And there's an article about how he's just, the best thing since sliced bread, and he's going to just bring prosperity and all this type of thing. Yeah. Free the people, all that type of thing, and then, now we know that didn't turn out too well.
It's crazy in hindsight, isn't it? I love that books leave a record of that kind of thing. You can't, once you've published a book and sent it out there, it's pretty hard to recall. Yeah. And I think that gives you a kind of honesty to the record in some ways.
Totally.
Like, people out there were thinking some whack stuff back in the day, and, we're thinking that now, so maybe it's a little bit of a clue for us to get a look at ourselves.
We don't seem to learn anything, though, I might add.
People are people.
Yeah. It's just, it's... And so culture, what do you reckon... Yeah, that do you kind of get in, like, look at the culture war and that type of thing, like the things like that? Which one? Yeah, true.
Which ones are there?
Well, there's the one in the West, which is sort of going on, and, I suppose...
I think anything
the clash of...
media, and particularly news media and kind of information, is a bit of a war. Finding out which side of the story is actually accurate or fair to the people involved, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
100%.
I don't personally keep too much up to date with politics currently.
No.
I'm trying to put myself in a philosophical headspace for uni, but it's definitely been a thing I've been interested in, the role of media, the control that gives people around narratives as well. It's pretty interesting for me.
Yeah, when you're talking about the transparency of your artistic process, the thought just jumped into my mind, man, that's the opposite of politics.
Yeah.
Where it's like we claim to be transparent, but of course they're not. Double speak and all of that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to claim anything, I'm just making stuff, so that helps me.
Yeah. You describe yourself as acultural. Is that fair? What does that mean?
I feel like I'm trying to cultivate in myself observation as an important standpoint, and I think as a person that's played quite a big part in my life as well. I actually grew up in the Exclusive Brethren, so there was this tension of a heavily religious context where there's very strict protocols around what's accepted and what's not accepted culturally, and my mother was excommunicated from that group, which kind of put me in this awkward limbo position, and navigating that as a child and then a young person kind of heightened my awareness to how culture becomes part of an identity. But personally, I didn't actually experience one. I didn't feel like I fit anywhere in particular. The Exclusive Brethren is quite an alien concept for most Kiwis, but here I was, just being a Kiwi like everyone else at the same time. So I think I'm trying to honour that legacy and honour my background and where my ancestors come from, but as a person currently, observation and kind of sitting in between and across cultures is an important part of my life. Yeah.
So it sounds like a shamanic role.
Potentially.
To some degree. It sounds like an intense experience having your mum excommunicated.
Absolutely.
God, that sounds so intense.
A good one in the end.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like, yeah, I would imagine so. But, yeah, there's definitely two different worlds there.
Yes.
And, yeah, it's kind of like culture's not always a bad thing. Like, of course not. But, yeah, it can be used in a way to destroy and suppress
or control.
Control, yeah.
And it does have a limiting factor, although it's not a bad thing. It's just part of who we are to live in culture, and that's kind of the sea that we swim in.
Yeah,
It's how we get by. It does identify us, but even thinking about it, it's important.
Yeah, some of those currents are strong, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah, we are defined by our culture.
And we can set it as well. It's not a static thing.
No.
It's not just... It is passed to us, but we're always interpreting that. We're always giving our own view of it, and then what we pass on to our next generation isn't exactly what we received. It's again, it's that dynamic thing.
Yeah, and we get an opportunity to add to it, right?
It's life. It's amazing.
That's right. Yeah, like why look at it just as culture? It's just life. Yeah, past, present, future. There's that whole thing, don't know if you've heard it before, but I thought it was a Jewish thing, but I've since heard that the Maori people have a kind of relationship with it as well. Like going through time, we think that we're sort of heading through time, just kind of like looking ahead at the future all the time. But they interpret it as you're travelling backwards.
Yes.
Moving forwards, travelling backwards, looking at the past, and kind of... you don't know what is in the future, so you're kind of going that way.
Yeah, I know that through Māori culture.
Yeah.
One. And I think I came across that more in depth when I came back to study. Being at UC is quite a good environment where you're exposed to new ideas. It fascinates me as well, particularly kind of in contrast generically with perhaps a Western conception of the future. It's something you're looking towards, you're not really as connected to the past mentally in some way, the idea of progress is a big thing.
That's
where
right. Yeah.
You're gunning, you're facing forward, you're not
Yeah.
looking back and all that kind of thing. But
Like, there's an element of that which is good because, you know, we're striving constantly as a human race to make things better,
Yes.
essentially.
Yep.
I mean, I hope that that's what we're doing. And, yeah, but there's also a bad part of it because it can be tied quite closely to profit and money and consumerism and selling stuff to people and all of that type of thing. It can be very, manipulated into, you know, what is the future going to be.
and
But the present's where it's at.
yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
perhaps with regard to moving into the future, both have a place as well. You know, sometimes you do need to not look back at the past, and sometimes that's actually the defining feature and more healthy if you stay connected.
Yeah, exactly. There's a leadership guy that we've had on here who talks about, he was a military dude, and he's obviously, you know, had a fair share of excitement and / trauma or whatever.
Yeah.
But, he had one about, what was it? It was like the windscreen of a car and having the rear view mirror as just looking back in the past, but keeping the future also in context,
Yeah, that's
kind of
awesome.
thing.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, you've got to know where you came from, and you kind of keep your eye on
Well,
it
you've
to a
got
certain
to
degree.
embody the whole, all of it, all of the reality, but know what you know, bits of the past not to dwell over, and
That's right.
But you do need to understand your past, and but you also need to be present.
Best not to overthink it, really.
I don't know.
Exactly. Best not to overthink it. But you know, you need to intellectually to be able to describe some of these things.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
it's good to have the words.
That rear view mirror concept seems like the best of both worlds in some ways.
Yeah, well, I think, it can go sometimes one way or the other, right? You can become, or we can we can get too fixated on the past and crash the car or whatever. And
Yeah, no, I do.
but also you can stare at something that's coming towards you and crash the car, right? So, there's
true.
plenty of opportunities.
For crashing cars.
Yeah, I'm really good at
done that a couple of
taking
times.
an analogy and kind of mangling it.
Nah, that wasn't mangled. That was perfect.
Yeah. So, hey, so tell us about, so you're doing this residency at Photosynthesis. How long does that last?
It lasts for 3 months, so we'll be wrapping up, I think, towards the end of October. Between now and then, I'm going to have some in-studio days, once a week, hopefully, just for 4 hours or so, where anyone's free to come along, but I'll be working in the studio and just trying to try out some new photographic things. And then I'm going to run some workshops as well, which basically will centre around street photography and bookmaking.
Yep.
And then 2 shows at the end. So,
2 shows.
Yeah.
Just at the same time or at different times? Sort of.
Couple of weeks apart, I think. One of
Yeah.
them's going to be completely experimental. Who knows what it's going to have in it. And then the last one's kind of the pinnacle of the residency, where I'm hoping to show some portraits of locals where I've collaborated with them, and we're kind of illustrating, thinking about the myths that we carry around with ourselves, even the cultures that we attach to, and bringing them out in the portrait photography through illumination.
Portrait photography through illumination. What's
Yeah.
that?
Illuminated manuscripts, basically. Going to bring that bookmaking into photography in another way, not just putting the photo in the book, but kind of trying to bring some of those practices of drawing and text and graphic design back
cool.
on top of the images that we produce.
Yep. To kind of enhance them or whatever, just to say something.
Just to play,
Yeah.
to reverse the process a little bit.
Yeah.
Try something different.
Cool. Man. Yeah, it is amazing how many mediums or whatever it is that you cross. Because some of the stuff is even a little bit streety, like it is a little bit graffiti sort of style.
Yeah.
What is that sort of similar to the trash thing? Is there sort of an element of that or not?
I think I make lowbrow art in some ways. Conceptually, there's a lot of thinking behind what I'm doing, but practically, in terms of the way I make stuff and the materials I use, I don't want it to be that complicated, and I want it to reflect the place that I'm actually in and the things that I'm seeing. So
I think that's exactly what I like about it, that it's accessible.
Yeah.
Which I think that's what resonates with me, I think, as opposed to something just totally foreign, which is once again interesting because that's just me and my upbringing, my past of, all of those experiences. It's kind of like the computer program, dink, all of the input, and then that's what resonates with me. Yeah.
No, I get that. And I think I'm similar. Like, there wasn't heaps of art in my background. And for me, the access is a really important aspect of it.
Yep.
Creating stuff that other people could create. It's not really that technical what I do. The ideas maybe not intuitive for most people, but in terms of processes and being able to teach that as a way of expressing yourself as well is really important to me.
So do you teach art?
I do some workshops. I've done a few for bookmaking at the Linwood Gallery.
Yep.
And with the workshops with photosynthesis, I get that rolling
Yeah,
a little
true.
bit more as well.
Yeah. So those workshops going back, is it the the self-portrait type of thing?
Street photography and bookmaking. So
right.
We're going to it's a 6-part thing, and we're going to do basically 3 evenings where we do discussion walks, and we just get together and talk about photography and walk around the city and see what we can do in a slightly different environment. Night photography is different, from taking stuff during the day.
So you can just come along with your phone?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do mostly. I have a couple of film cameras and then I use my phone.
Yeah.
And again, accessible. I don't really have the money to go buy a fancy camera, even though I love photography. So 3 walks and then 3 nights where we take the images we've made and put them into a book.
Yeah. Well, a phone is pretty awesome in that regard, and it is super accessible. It's not, there's like the barriers to entry. Like everyone's got a phone these days, right?
They do, and most of them have pretty good cameras. Yep.
Most of mine are screenshots. Just accidental. Oh.
But you got some good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, look, occasionally it can just be sitting on the surface of a table, right?
Totally.
And it's like, what is this? Abstract art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can that be a problem? Like, is it a problem? Is there a danger in seeing art everywhere? But yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a question I've been thinking about a lot recently. Actually, part of what I'm trying to do at uni is think about the role that art plays in research, and
Right.
because for me, art is about knowing the world. It's not only about personal expression, and so I'm torn. Yeah, I think a certain conception of art as separate from everyday life is important. Like it's something aspirational, it can be transcendent or even sublime, and that's something that you don't really want to lose. But also, especially from probably like the 80s, 90s onwards, everyday art became more important because people recognised that high art or fine art in top galleries is not understandable to everyday people.
Yeah.
I think you need both.
Yeah.
Art everywhere, but also to bear in mind there is this rich history where actually art has been separate from everyday life too. And that's its origins in many ways. The earliest art that we have on record is most likely to do with religious practices or sacred rituals that shamans or leaders of tribes were involved in. It kind of had this talisman effect or prophetic effect where it was trying to imagine a future that wasn't exactly experienced.
That's another one of the things you kind of look at is the relationship between the physical or the material and the metaphysical.
Yes.
I noticed that there were a number of sort of, kind of things.
Yeah.
Themes or whatever
how
you call
does
them.
that
I don't
work,
know.
right? Like, how do you take one object and give it symbolic meaning?
Yeah, and then it, you know, people can fight over it, or it becomes it gains this value that is seemingly like not sort of possible. And the role that it plays.
Still very mysterious. Maybe that's the way it will always be.
Yeah, I wonder what the Egyptian people would think of your cat. Like, just keeping the door open.
They would tell me, "Love, you missed the point completely."
Yeah, is that meant to be because we used to worship them or something like that?
What was your teacher thinking? Mummified cat as doorstop?
Yeah,
That's very modern, postmodern.
totally. It's cool. Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think that's part of as like now we are wrestling with some of those things. We're wrestling with. It's, I guess, look, we always have, and it's those same sort of cycles over and over again. We're wrestling with purpose and meaning and all of that type of stuff, but more so in the digital age, right? Because it's kind of confronting us in a way that was never happened before, because we know it's material, but there's that AI is kind of creeping in, and people are like, ugh, what's that?
Fair reaction.
Because we're the ones that are alive.
Yeah.
And now our little physical things are starting to take new shapes and forms.
Yeah.
And
like, I think,
like it's almost like a new spirituality. Like imagine back in the day, the shaman or the priest, having an idol, saying that there's life behind it. That's kind of a comparison, isn't it, to like the phone this day? It's kind of like it's got so much wisdom and power kind of contained within it.
Yeah, it does kind of blur the boundaries between object and living being when you're dealing with AI or even any kind of fancy robotics these days. What is it exactly? It feels like it should be like us, but it's actually not.
No.
It's not alive, not yet, and I think that technological developments are actually further away than people think. AI itself these days it's limited in the way that it functions. It doesn't think the way that we do. It doesn't make connections the way that we do. It's working mathematically.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Amazing. Amazing. But it is more or less a robot still.
Yeah. I've watched some podcasts with, is it Lex Friedman? No, Lex.
I don't know. Is it Friedman? I don't know. You watch that stuff a lot more than I do.
Yeah, he's talked to some guys on both sides of the sort of battle lines or whatever, battlegrounds, as to whether we should sort of slow down a little bit, put some regulation in place to slow it down. They have kind of a little bit of fear associated with what it's going to be capable of. And I'm not too sure whether it's going to become conscious or not. It's just whether around more kind of so, is it going to make mistakes that it thinks it's doing a good job type of thing.
How do we regulate it when it exceeds our abilities?
Yeah,
certain
that's
areas?
right. Yeah.
You can't really put the cat back in the bag.
Yeah.
You know.
Because even in our own personal lives, like one of the things that you discover as you're maturing in life is that like imagine if you had a perfect life and you got to live it out from point A to point B, and you just eliminated all of the suffering and all of that type of thing. Like it would almost be like a version of hell, kind of to some degree. Like what would you learn? You'd just be kind of, I don't know where you'd be at. Maybe you're just kind of almost.
Where would your choice be, or
exactly,
ability to respond to circumstances? It kind of feels pre-programmed if it's immaculate.
So I suppose, that's an interesting thing I think about with culture and humanity and stuff like that. This desire to eliminate suffering and things like that. When in actual fact it gives us so much, like we get so much from it. It's like that it is like to be human, kind of.
Yeah, and if you look at it at one level as well, I think that kind of defines us. Like every adaptation that we've experienced as people has come from responding to stress.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
That's how I view it anyway. So
Yeah.
sometimes that stress is something to be avoided and to minimise if possible, but you can't actually eliminate it. That's really going back to religious thinking and concepts of heaven and trying to bring that to earth. Not wrong, but also probably not possible. And
No.
maybe enjoying that and managing that and just living is where you start with things.
Yeah, there's kind of like a truthfulness about that, eh? Like a realness. Yeah, that's one of the things that I think about at night. Trying to sleep, wondering. I mean, and something happened to me this morning, right? Set my alarm clock last night, 4:15. 4:30, just in case I sleep in. I've got
Of
two,
course,
you can have multiple alarms now.
Perfect.
So, and then this morning when the alarm goes off, it went off at 4:25. I don't even have that programmed in my phone, but it's my word against my phone's word.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, if you tell
Who
that
are you
someone...
gonna believe?
Yeah, like you guys would immediately believe the phone, right? You wouldn't believe me because I'm a human and I've made an error
I would want
somehow.
to believe you.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's what happened to me this morning. It's kind of thinking about it. So do you use, like, what's the extent of the digital and, like, other than Instagram, do you use it in many other ways, like AI or things like that?
Not really. I use design software. I use my phone for taking photos. I still have a Neopets account from when I was like, old, but that's about it. I mean, I think I'm pretty lo-fi in general with the way I live my life.
Yeah.
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 Keeps it simple for me, personally.
Yeah, for sure. Well, presumably there's a lot of digital trash out there, and...
Yeah.
Well,
So-
we know there's a huge, vast array of digital trash out there.
Yeah, that's something that I'd like to delve into a bit more as well. There's this concept of poor images and how, as we've become more saturated with images, the quality of that's actually been reduced. But what is the value? Because it doesn't mean that they're rubbish necessarily. Low quality images tell you a lot about where they came from as well. And I think I'm trying to dig into that a bit more, particularly because of that concept of poor art and lowbrow materials and things like that, pushing the boundaries about image making.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an interesting relationship between kind of money and that idea, like with the proliferation of something, like artwork, for example, like digitally. I remember when, in the 90s there were computers and there was a thing called clip art, which was just images which kind of came with the computer.
Love that
Which
stuff.
was just kind of a black and white. Or maybe it had a wee bit of colour, but it might be of a pizza. It was kind of like emojis. It was like, you know how you have all the emojis and stuff. That was the forerunner for clip art.
I remember word art as well.
Oh, yeah.
On like tech stuff. Probably early 2000s, I think, by the time I got around to it.
Yeah.
You know how you could...
What was word art?
You could like type your word in and then you could change the settings so it would go 3D or the colours would change or the style would change and it would turn it into an image that you could move around.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my introduction to graphic design.
That's cool. Yep. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, there was a thing called the lettering book. The lettering book was like a font book, but more directed at just, the everyday school kid.
Yeah.
And you could be exposed to these fonts. You just
Kinda
couldn't
like-
believe your eyes.
Yeah.
That one's 3D. Look at it. It's just jumping off the page. Yeah. We used to get excited about that type
We've
of thing.
come a long way,
A little bit of
eh?
shading.
No,
But, you
no,
know.
you just take it for granted.
I don't know. I mean, if I saw a lettering book these days, I'd
Well, we just did it at a higher dimension of adaptability and ease, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was perhaps the same process developed.
Yeah.
I remember Spirograph. Do you remember that?
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, that was cool.
I love that.
Doing those patterns, man, that was so awesome.
Totally. That was just a tool to create something that was kind of beautiful instantaneously.
Yeah.
Without
And you didn't have to
wrecking
be
it.
an expert or anything. You just follow
just
the
wheel
framework.
it around.
Yeah.
You could hold the pencil like
Yeah,
that.
it's
But
like
the results
perfect.
every time, the wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something wondrous about creating that perfect image.
So I suppose that's what people get into when they do like the AI artwork or whatever. It's maybe they're just kind of getting into that in a new way.
Yeah, just playing
Yeah.
with the
What's that?
technology.
Spirograph on steroids,
Yeah.
to some degree. I mean,
Maybe
it's still a mechanism.
Maybe you could try that with an AI image creator.
I
something
I saw
spirographed.
an artist doing that with actually a can of paint on a string,
Oh,
hanging from the
wow.
ceiling, and the whole room.
Yeah.
Was like a piece of paper on the floor over the whole room, and he set the can of paint flying around in like an elliptical path,
That's very Jackson
and it made a
Pollock.
perfect pattern. You've seen it, have you, Dave?
I have seen
Yeah, it's
ones
really
like
cool.
that. Yeah.
So it's just physics operating
It's
on the
totally
liquid.
cheating.
All good,
No,
though.
I'm joking.
Yeah, he's taken the same process and just used different materials.
Yeah, I think that's my favourite thing about art making. You know, no matter what technology you use, even if it's digital, is the exploration and the playing and creating something that didn't exist before. This brand new thing, whatever it is, who knows what it is.
Yeah, I like that about your artwork though. Like there's an element that's a little bit scary about it. Is like not like you said before. You know, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
What crazy stuff gets.
Some people
Produced.
find that it's got a slightly dangerous aspect to that.
The openness of art.
It's the opposite to being, exploration and just moving into dimensions that others might not go.
Yeah. I think
Some people, that could be seen as unsettling by a certain group of people.
True.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember I knew a woman, I worked on a high country farm, and she said for her, being in a crowded room of people was sort of terrifying, whereas being in the wilderness alone, or no, it was the other way around. Being in a crowded room, she was very comfortable, but being in the wilderness alone was kind of terrifying.
Right.
But you get people who are the complete opposite to that. They would much rather prefer, and they're much more comfortable like exploring the wilderness or whatever, and that's where they kind of, I don't know, excel, or they just really kind of feel at peace and stuff.
space for your
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I enjoy space, personally. Like, crowded rooms are all good. I don't mind them, but I'm okay with the wilderness.
Because like you say, I mean, sooner or later you put your stuff on a wall and a bunch of people come along and look at it.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience, that one. Because it kind of helps you see things from the outside again. When you're making art, you get really involved in your own process and your own thinking, and there's a real world out there. I enjoy making work that has a lot of depth behind it for me personally, but just hearing how people engage it and recognise places that they've been or things that they've seen. It's a good part of it.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit more about why Christchurch plays such a big role.
It's where I'm from. It's
Yeah.
where I live, and I think it's an aspect of that being present that you mentioned earlier. That, this is where I am, and I want to engage with that and do homage to that as well in some ways. Like, I might not always be here, who knows? But for now, this is the place, and if I can be real about that and kind of leave the record of it in my own work too, it's it just makes sense to me. It's kind of like developing a history in some ways.
Yeah, and you're right. There's kind of a prevailing culture which might suggest that you're not meant to be proud of the place where you're from, or you're not meant to celebrate where you're at, because we always want to be in the future. Yeah.
Or somewhere better, but
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to think if I'm just going around wishing that I was somewhere else, I'm probably not actually doing anything to better the place that I'm in. And if we all kept it real where we are a bit more, we might actually build each other up. And it does happen, of course.
Totally.
But it's about a mindset, I think.
Yeah.
Cultivating enjoyment where you are.
Yeah.
Contentment.
And that's what photosynthesis is about, right?
Yeah.
Like, we had Kieran on the podcast, and he's sort of, they just created this place.
Yeah. It's an amazing space, yeah. It's definitely provided me with opportunity I wouldn't have had otherwise. And they're just a great bunch of people to be around too.
Nice one. I gave Kieran a little photography book that I'd been carrying around with me for like my whole life.
Oh,
you know how
so
you've got,
lovely.
you know how you've got stuff.
Yeah, you do.
And it's hard to it's not hard to get rid of it, and you know there's value in it and stuff, and you love it. But then it's also so nice to give it. And there was a book, and it was about children taking photographs in I think the Adirondacks, or maybe in America somewhere, or no. What's that other place? There's heaps of mining and stuff.
Virginia or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, Virginia.
Appalachian.
Yeah, Appalachian.
And it was a teacher in the 60s or 70s and just bought a whole bunch of disposable cameras and gave them to the kids. And they weren't necessarily, they were not highbrow. They came from real low.
Love
and they just went out and took photographs and expressed themselves. And
I think that's the way to do it, is just actually do it, just go out there and try it.
Yeah, and she must have been, like you just don't know what's going to come back.
Absolutely.
I mean, apart from a lot of farm animals and images of, mountains. But some of the family ones and of their families and stuff were really touching, There's something about miners and, like, dirt, and just having to wash themselves every day that is sort of kind of interesting, I reckon.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes I feel that just in life, like you almost have to wash yourself clean every day.
Yeah. Mentally as well.
Yeah.
That's what I find.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Man, we're in an interesting place as a sort of a society and things. There's a lot going on. And this whole digital thing is just so new. It's so new.
Yeah, I do often wonder to myself, 100 years from now, what's it going to look like? Cars are about just over 100 years old in some ways, mass manufacturing. If you look at early Model T Ford compared to now, that's huge development, and you've got digital technology, which is inherently more complex already. What's that going to look like in 100 years?
There's definitely a process where it's sped up. Like, that's undeniable. Like,
amazing,
the last 1,000 years, I mean, look, I'm just talking totally, I don't know, but, there was a few periods there where I bet 1,000 years went past and not much happened.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
There was
Definitely.
carts and horses and animals and stuff, right?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. And now we're just dealing with all sorts of intense stuff, like the communication, like the global kind of network and stuff. It's full on.
Yeah, how do you even make sense of it? In some ways?
It's just definitely exponentially increasing. So 100 years from now, cripes, who knows?
Yeah, and I think it's like we are kind of paying the price through mental health and stuff like that. I think it does reflect into our society and
There's
culture.
always been mental health around.
Yeah,
but it's
for
just
sure.
A different dynamic.
Yeah, growing pains. I think the intensity of our kind of
Acceleration.
social worlds and mental worlds even as well. It's just a lot of saturation with images and ideas and all that sort of thing these days.
Yeah, you're right.
It is a thing.
Yeah. But
In some ways life's still the same, but just the tools that we use and how they're crossing boundaries now is a lot to navigate.
It's almost the exteriorization of the imagination.
Yep.
Like we get to walk in the live-in imagination a wee bit more.
Yep.
So it's
Exactly.
like crossing the bounds into materiality and so forth.
that's true. That's that kind of physical
Well,
and
that's how I see it
metaphysical
anyway.
thing again. Yeah.
So in some ways, sort of, in that regard, it's sort of not that big a deal. But it is an evolutionary process It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, understanding it and being able to like put the brakes on things like you mentioned earlier with development. Can we have a bit more control around the speed that we're setting things out there is important. But that concept of imagination and the material objects we put it into is at the centre of my research at uni, and I'm trying to think around if we're expressing ourselves into these objects and these objects then change the world we grow up in and how we develop and the mindsets that we get from it, how can we have a bit more control around the objects we produce or the media that we produce or the digital technologies? Because we are, in effect, creating our future imaginations. We're setting a stage for a different time that we don't fully understand yet.
No,
Can we think about it now?
Yeah.
It's a bit fuzzy, but it is very fascinating how we bridge this imaginative material gap. Why do we even do that? Human imagination. Don't answer that question. I don't think it can be answered.
It's a rhetorical question? Okay. Phew.
I remember Terence McKenna, he talked about the object at the end of time. Like the object that we're moving towards already exists, and it's actually drawing us to it.
Interesting.
So that's already there. I think he called it the eschaton.
Right.
But who knows what time is?
He's
It
a
just
fascinating
put a completely
mind.
different take on time. I mean, he got that from the psilocybin trips and the DMT trips, and he would speak to the mushrooms. But he took that whole different idea about time. We're not just in this linear thing moving forward, where the future's already there and we're moving towards it, or moreover, the force of that future is drawing us toward it. In some ways, it's already been created.
The seeds of it definitely present. Yeah.
Well, I think he was saying the actual object is already there.
Right.
The end of history, he called it. But I mean, that's just a different way of looking at time, and that's, in my view, it's completely relevant.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
What do you think about that, Dave?
The immaterial kind of, and the material and the relationship between them. I think you can kind of go, there's an element of balance required, I think, because we are here and you've got to keep your feet on the ground type of thing.
Oh, 100%.
But I do believe that, I believe in spirituality and all that type of thing, and I think there is meaning, there is a high meaning and a high purpose and stuff like that. But, I don't know. Like time, flipping heck.
When you're on the ground, like sitting in a cafe right now, it's hard to think about the end of everything.
Yeah, true. But I like it that, you're not sort of plummeting towards nothingness. Like, I find that a disturbing kind of thing. Like,
people have a lot of, we can build up a lot of anxiety about the past or the future,
Yeah.
which isn't good.
Like, when you said object in the future, I just imagined a brick wall. Everyone's just,
whatever.
going to go splat.
That'll probably do. Or maybe that is your future, Dave. I don't know.
I have to put up with.
Oh, sorry, mate.
No, actually,
it's probably got a lovely doorway in it, and you're going to go through into a wonderful place.
Through. It's a tunnel, Milton.
Yeah, mate.
No, I mean that came from within.
I kind of imagined a wormhole sort of vibe.
Oh yeah,
glass bead sphere.
Oh,
just for the record.
Yeah, just you might be. Yeah, if we're going to place bets on it. Yeah.
Maybe the object at the end of the world is just a portal into the next thing. Probably.
Who knows? It's that transdimensionality and the liminality and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think I believe we are created and by a creator, and that's why we are creative and stuff. Like there's an element of that, like where we're created in the image, and that's why I think we have all of those questions and that desire to express ourselves and stuff.
Yeah,
But that's, I don't know. Yeah, you'd need to get into this.
Because there's always been change.
And stuff.
I came across
it's intense.
Kandinsky.
Yeah, Kandinsky.
was he like an abstract pioneer?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Could you talk about him a little? Because it's just like there's a transdimensionality. It's moving into a different way to interpret and express the world.
Yeah, so the main thing that I know about his work is his conception of art as this prophetic practice for society. He really viewed artists as being slightly ahead of everybody else, and he saw their role as communicating the visions of the future that they saw just in front of them to people who were slightly behind in some ways. So he's got this famous concept of if we are a triangle moving towards the end of history perhaps, then at different stages along there's an artist, people following them. And I find that a really fascinating view. I think he's trying to convey something about the newness that art brings. It generates a world that doesn't exist yet when you make something. He's quite spiritual in a lot of his ways of wording things. Yeah.
I've never heard of him.
Oh, I saw his name somewhere when I was like looking at your work, and I thought, I'll look him up. And he sounds a very interesting guy.
Yeah, so he was connected to the Bauhaus, which was a design school that started in the 20s, I think. It finished in the 30s with the start of the World War, but their philosophy was kind of innovative, where they broke down basic training for art and tried to bring it into industry and teach colour theory, teach metalworking and weaving and all of these basic principles of composition. So
wow,
that's
right.
Cool. He allowed women into his school.
Yeah. They did have women there.
So it's like pushing the boundaries at the time.
Yeah, and the Bauhaus really set the foundation for the concept of polytechnic teaching, where you're taking theoretical ideas and new technologies and training people to work in industry.
Cool. That's cool. I've never ever thought of that.
It's quite an interesting school. They're very modernist in style, so there's a distinctive influence that they bring into the objects that they made, furniture, architecture, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's cool. And that's where you bring in heaps of stuff as well, right? You're not confined to just one or the other or whatever.
Yeah.
Because architecture's a huge one, especially for a city like Christchurch, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's been kind of wiped out. Who knows who's coming up with all these new buildings, but someone is.
There's always these visual...
And that's very undemocratic.
That's true. But you're right, there's always these visual perspectives or tools behind any design that people make. So understanding what those are, what is form, what is colour, what is line.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, full on. Architecture is a massive force of art,
It is, yeah.
And
do you have a favourite building in Christchurch? Favourite trends, maybe?
Maybe your house.
Home
sweet home.
1920s. So perhaps I haven't really thought about that before. But no, not.
What about an unfavourite?
Unfavourite. Yeah, I mean,
what's the worst building in Christchurch?
Yeah, I guess it's just that tilt slab kind of concrete type of thing. But who knows?
That tilt slabby stuff. It is annoying. I find that annoying.
When they kind of decorate it to look like wooden panels.
Right.
That gets me.
Yeah, a whole nother level.
It's concrete. It's not wood, guys.
Yeah, if you're going to use wood, use wood. Or pretend to. I don't know, but I guess I probably might like more the fluid kind of things. I think we've been maybe chatting about that, like the masculine and the feminine, and in buildings it seems that quite often it's kind of quite sort of, I don't know, straight lines and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like a building with a few curves.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
more organic.
Yeah, and some of the, what do they call them, the facades. Like, I think the building inside can be pretty kind of, you know, the same kind of bones, but the facade can have that kind of fluidity and stuff on, you know, wrapped around it. Like, even the convention centre, I don't know, it doesn't offend me anyway. I haven't looked at it enough, and I haven't been inside.
Yeah, I haven't been inside either.
Yeah.
I really love living buildings. I feel like we should get a few more of those here where they've got green walls on the outside and they're kind of like, I don't know, just engaging with the natural environment a bit more.
Yeah. Have you done any murals?
I haven't. No.
That would be cool.
Could be good.
Yeah.
There'd be something amazing about large scale. Often my works are quite small.
Yeah.
It'd be a really interesting thing to explore.
Yeah, totally. Do you think you'd just blow up a small one into a big one, or?
Nah. Try something completely different, like roller on a stick or something. That'd be good.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Irene. Thanks for coming in and talking to us about your artwork.
No worries.
And so how long have we got to go and see your latest exhibition it's at the Dark Room, correct?
Yeah, Art Hole is the name of the gallery that's at Dark Room. But the show, A Universal Law of Gravitation, is on till Saturday. So I'm there 11 till 4 till Saturday. They're just week-long shows, but there'll be another one coming up after that and another one after that too.
Yeah. Nice one.
Should be good.
Cool. See you later.
See ya.